Hey everybody, welcome back to the Flannel Phillip channel. I'm Phillip. I know some of the coolest people with some of the coolest trucks. Chris Budke. You probably already recognize him. He is the husband of Flatbed Red, right?
I'm Mr. Flatbed Red.
Flatbed Red.
Yep, that's how everyone knows me, Mr.
Exactly.
Flatbed Red. Yep.
But Chris here has an awesome Marmon. He agreed to show us a little bit around. So it's going to be an awesome episode. Stick around for it. Here we go. So Chris, tell us about your awesome machine, and I know you're all about the A.T.H.S, and
Absolutely.
So you're probably a recognizable face anyway, but go into that a little bit too, who you are, what you do, and then talk about your machine.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome.
All right, well, again, I'm Chris Budke. I'm from Findlay, Ohio. I joined the American Truck Historical Society back in about 2003 because of my passion for antique trucks. I grew up loving trucks, the old cab-overs, K100s, A-model Kenworths, watching BJ and the Bear, Smokey and the Bandit, all that stuff.
Yes.
You might notice that from the way I dress. But at any rate, so I just love old trucks, and the American Truck Historical Society is all about preserving the history of trucks and trucking.
Right.
And so what we have here today is a 1987 Marmon. A lot of people haven't heard of the Marmon. They were a custom-built truck. It was built in Garland, Texas, from 1967 to 1997. And since I was about 5 years old, I always wanted one. And so finally, a couple years ago, I was in the process of selling. I used to have a little Kenworth cab over that I just took to truck shows. It was just a little toy that I had. And at any rate, I had a buyer for it. And about the same time, a friend of mine called and said, "Hey, I heard you're looking for a Marmon." And I said, "Well, you might have heard right." He says, "How about you come up and take a look at this, and I bet if you drive it, you'll take it home."
Awesome.
So I went up, and he was right. It was about everything I could ever want. What I have here is a 1987 Marmon 57P HR, which is their premium hood truck. It has a 64-inch stand-up Marmon sleeper. These trucks were hand-built. For those of you that don't know, this was considered the Rolls-Royce of trucks back in the day, because each one was custom-built per order by hand. They literally would start with a pair of frame rails on the ground, and they would build the truck up from that. There was no moving assembly line.
Wow.
And also, contrary to popular belief, cab is completely Marmon. Everybody thinks it's a Kenworth cab. It is not. Marmon stamped.
Do they share any parts at all, or?
Now that's where it does.
Okay.
They do share a lot of parts.
Okay.
Not with Kenworth, but a lot with Peterbilt.
Gotcha. Okay.
The plants are not far apart. The Dent plant is not far from Garland, where they built these trucks.
Sure. Okay.
And so if you look inside, probably ought to walk over here.
Yeah.
First thing you're going to notice the door handle.
Right.
Same as in a 359, 379.
Sure.
Open the door. Door handle. Look familiar?
Yes.
Key. The switch is on the dash. Same as a 359.
Gotcha.
And the whole point of this was so that when you were on the road, Marmon knew you did not have a good dealer network. They knew that issue. So the parts that would wear out the most, they outsourced to other companies so that you could go to any truck dealer in North America and get the parts you needed to get back on the road.
Wow.
So they're the only really proprietary parts now that are hard to find are the hood, the cab, the sleeper interior components, the interior itself.
Okay.
Really everything else is a component that you can source.
Wow.
And so, believe it or not, I actually am buying parts from a surviving Marmon dealer. There's a Marmon dealer in Chicago, Illinois.
You're kidding. I didn't know that.
There is.
That's
and
awesome.
When the plant closed, I believe they told me they bought 17 trailer loads of Marmon parts, new old stock.
Wow.
And so I buy parts from them. And then there's a gentleman in near Garland, Texas, named Ken Matuzik. And some people may know him. He owns the last Marmon. It was the last truck produced for the American market from the plant.
I see.
And he has been running that truck since 1997. when it was new, and he still works that truck. But he also has trailers full of parts.
Sure.
So if you have a Marmon out there and you don't already know Ken, you need to get a hold of Ken Matuzik.
Gotcha.
So, you know, if you look around, I mean, it's similar to a lot of trucks of the era, flat dash, big gauges, lots of gauges, wood grain.
Sure.
You know, the interior is a little bit different, reminiscent of a Peterbilt because you've got the square panels on here.
Sure.
But not quite the same.
Yeah.
And it's just a really well-built truck.
It is.
What I found when I drove it is it actually is probably the nicest running driving truck. And we have a fleet of trucks at work.
Sure.
2020s, 2017s. This truck actually runs smoother, is quieter, has less rattles than any of those trucks.
Wow.
And it's a 1987 with working air conditioning.
That's incredible, too.
It is. So going to shows, it's very comfortable. This truck was a working truck when I bought it.
Okay. Now, I heard that Marmons had stamped holes in their frame rails instead of am I thinking correctly? Okay.
They are stamped holes in the frame.
All right.
I mean, everything about this truck is a premium truck. These trucks were built for a high-end buyer in mind. They were not built for the average fleet.
Gotcha.
There were some fleets around that ran them.
Okay.
Like Elite Services, that comes to mind out of Eastern PA. This truck was actually sold new in Eastern PA at a very famous place called Dutchman's.
Okay.
They sold the most Marmons of any dealer in North America.
Wow.
That's why to this day you'll find more Marmons around PA than any other place in the country.
Gotcha.
But
makes sense.
The original owner of this truck was leased to a company called Sunflower. Unfortunately, I don't know who he was or if he's still around anymore.
Okay.
But this truck was built black. I don't know if it had stripes, but I was told he leased the Sunflower.
Okay.
And you had to paint the truck this blue color.
See.
That was their fleet color.
Okay.
So it's been this blue since 1987. So the paint you're seeing here, which, yes, it still has, you can read all the DOT numbers, the Kentucky Heavy Use, the VIN, it's all still on here.
It's like the history of the truck. You can see it. Yeah.
I'm proud that it's still on there because it's original.
Right.
The only thing that was changed when I bought it was it was originally had a dark blue stripe here, and they had faded pretty bad, so my buddy put the gold on, and I think I might change it back to the dark blue.
Okay.
Buff the paint out and clear coat it to preserve what's here.
I see.
Because this is one of those trucks, you could restore it, you could spend $200,000 and have an incredible show truck.
Sure.
But I also appreciate a truck that has 1.8 million miles like this does.
Yes.
And still is in this condition.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what happened to this truck that preserved it, at least in my opinion, I was told this by the second owners who I met in Virginia a couple of years, last year, in fact, at an A.T.H.S. convention. But the third owner blew the motor. He towed it back to his shop, and it sat in the shed from 2001 or 2 until 2016.
Is that right?
Yes. At which point it was pulled out. Some people from Northwest Ohio, not far from me, bought it. Did a lot of mechanical work to it. Put a 3406C cat in it.
Yep.
New style 13 transmission. Rebuilt the rear end, so mechanically this truck is dialed in.
Gotcha. They kind of updated a few things on the way.
Right.
Okay.
You know,
to make it roadable.
Right. Well, the old 13s had that whine to it.
Yes.
This doesn't have that. Like I said, this is a quiet truck to drive.
Gotcha.
Inside the truck, they made a few modifications. It was a true double bunk.
Okay.
They took out the upper bunk that flips up inside of it.
Sure.
And at any rate, it was better for them because they are a couple that runs over the road.
Right.
And at any rate, they ran the truck. They put about 200,000 miles on it in 2 years.
Wow.
All in reefer.
Okay.
And at that point, it was too small, and they went to a truck with a 100-inch double eagle.
Sure.
With 64.
Okay.
And so they sold this to a friend of mine who had another Marmon that I had been trying to buy, and he wouldn't come off of.
Okay.
And after about a month and a half, he said, "Hey, I'm getting old. I don't need 2 Marmons. Well, how about you come and take this one home?"
Sure.
So I again, I couldn't resist. It's such a cool truck.
It's so cool.
So,
now, suspension's all original style?
It's original suspension to the truck.
Okay.
My build sheet, if you look at the suspension carefully, you'll recognize it. It looks just like a Hendrickson or an International, which are identical.
Gotcha.
But the build sheet specifies that it is a Marmon air suspension.
Ah, okay.
I think there's literally no difference. I am sure the parts interchange, but that's what they called it to make you feel better when you looked it up and when you ordered it, I guess.
Gotcha.
I really haven't done too much to the exterior of the truck. I did the mud flat brackets and the old cat diesel powered flats.
Well, sure, yeah.
This is my first truck with a cat in it, so I'm proud to finally have a truck.
They're period correct, too, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm all about period correct.
Right, yep.
And
did it always have aluminum wheels inside and out, all those kind of things?
That's a good question, because it did not. It was ordered with aluminum steer, and it was actually steel buds on the back.
Okay.
And at least the second owner, I don't know about the first owner, but the second owner had the chrome two-hole steelies on the back.
Okay.
Which I could find somebody. I'd love to put those back on here.
Sure.
Not because of any other reason. I think it's cool.
Right. Yo, absolutely.
I mean, I like polishing, but I dig the chrome.
Me too. And two-hole steelies would be period correct.
Absolutely.
Like that's what the large cars were doing back then.
Exactly. I mean, I have pictures of this truck from the second owners.
Yeah.
They're from like 92 to 95. So it's curious to see. Really not much has changed since then.
That's awesome.
You know?
Yeah.
So I found those Marmon quarter fender flaps. Those are new old stock.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Those came from Chicago Marmon.
Okay.
Which is funny because they were made by Caneta Rubber in Wapakoneta, Ohio, which is literally 10 miles from where I work out of, the shop I work out of.
That's so cool.
And so they traveled all the way from Ohio to Garland, Texas.
Yep.
Then up to Chicago Marmon, and then back to almost Wapakoneta.
Wow.
So it's one of those little details I think that helps sell the truck.
Sure.
But the interior. I mean, again, it's not exactly original anymore.
But this particular sleeper is a Marmon specific.
This is a Marmon specific sleeper.
Okay.
I found on Facebook the guy that actually designed these trucks. He was the industrial designer that was working for Marmon at the time.
Okay.
And these were released at the Dallas Truck Show in like 80, 81, something like that. And they had an outside company building these sleepers. Booth was the name of the company.
Booth, okay.
And unfortunately, I guess Booth could not keep up with production demands.
Okay.
At that point, Marmon took it over. And they started building their own sleeper. But since then, I've discovered there's a sleeper also from Texas called an All-American.
Okay.
And they are almost identical.
Wow.
The same extrusions on the corners, the roof cap, even the window on the front is the same as this. So I don't know. There's got to be a connection. I just don't know what it is yet.
Because back in those days, there was a lot of smaller sleeper manufacturers that one would get bought up by another, and they would buy their stock or hire their employees, things like that.
There were many individual sleeper companies that were trying to make a go in regional things. And some of those didn't translate later, and some of them did. Like you said, they got bought out by other companies, and they continue on.
I discovered that with Benz. Like they continued, like one would buy up another, and pretty soon they're all called Benz, even though it might not say it on
might be a McLaughlin, might be a Beeline, not sure though.
Yep.
So this one, believe it or not, it is a 64-inch sleeper. Everyone knows the infamous 63-inch Peterbilt. And I think it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing for them to do. There were a lot of engineers, designers that went back and forth between working at Pete and at Marmon. And so I think it was just not a slap in the face, but just kind of a ha-ha, 1 inch longer.
1 inch longer, yep.
What difference does 1 inch make?
Sure. But, when it's the horsepower, it's the wheelbase, it's all the things. If you had, a couple, another higher... Even 1 digit higher, you could brag just a little bit more.
Exactly. And back in the 80s, that's what they were doing. It was all about bragging rights. It didn't matter if it was Pete, Kenworth, they were all playing the same game.
Makes sense.
But
very
Marmon,
cool.
They've always been kind of their own unique thing.
Yeah.
Again, they built them from 67 to 97.
You bet.
And I don't know. I've always been drawn to different things.
Yes.
And this is definitely different.
It is different. Would you be willing to take us under the hood, Chris?
Oh,
Is that
absolutely.
all right? So, is there anything that you know of, like performance-wise, that was changed, or it's just completely stock?
It is basically stock, from my knowledge. Like I said, it was a B model cat when it was built, and the guy that owned this truck, second in line, he was a cat mechanic by trade.
Okay.
Trucked on the side.
Sure.
And so he knew how to make them pretty hot and run right.
He might. Yeah.
A little bit of tweaking.
Turned it up a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, and apparently, from what I'm told, he informed the third buyer that you need to be careful and be easy on this truck.
Gotcha.
You'll be
Watch
in
your
trouble.
pyro, things like that. Just
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Watch the pyro. Well, within 6 months, I'm told, he took the truck on a trip hauling steel from Virginia up to Ohio.
Okay.
At which point he took the motor.
Okay. Shoot.
And at that point, it was towed back to Virginia and sat in a shed.
Okay.
But when the people in Ohio bought it, I mean, they were building a runner. They weren't building it to restore.
Right.
So he's a cat guy, and he found this rebuilt C model and stuck it in here. And again, like I said, updated the transmission to a new style 13.
You bet.
And it's got 355 rears. The speedometer's off about 7 miles an hour. So if you're not paying attention, you're going to get in trouble. And I had
Gotcha.
a very understanding county mountie let me go one day. I was just a little over where I should have been.
Hey. Yeah. I get it. Well, that's really cool. And I love that you know so much of the history of the truck. You know where it's been. You know some of the different cycles that it's been through in its life. And
well, let's see, the thing is, my previous cab over truck, I never really found out much about it. I bought it out of a scrapyard, and I just never could connect the dots. Well,
a lot of mysteries. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
This one, I was lucky.
Sure.
When I bought it, I knew it came from Virginia because you can plainly read it on the doors.
Sure.
It's Percival, Virginia right there, and it's
Yeah.
Winchester, Virginia over there.
Sure.
And since the convention was going to be so close, I figured the best thing to do was put a sign in it and see if somebody would bite.
Yeah.
And the convention went on. The truck was there for 5 days.
Okay.
And literally on the last day of the show, in the afternoon, the last hour of the show, my phone rings, and a woman says, hey, I'm standing here next to my truck.
Oh, wow.
And I said, is that right? She said, yeah, this is Babe the Big Blue Ox.
Wow.
I said, is that right? She says, yeah. She said, would you like to speak with me? I said, absolutely.
Yes.
She said, we'll be standing here by your truck. So I literally ran the entire length of the fairgrounds, and at my age, I shouldn't be running that. Truck driver should be running that far at least.
I feel you. I really do.
Right on. So I went down and spoke to her and her husband,
Sure.
and they had bought it in 92.
Wow.
And ran it for about 9 years.
Wow.
And they gave me a ton of information as well as a pile of photos.
Wow, that's gold.
Yes.
Man
So
alive.
I found out a lot about the truck and where it
Cool.
had been, what it had hauled, which is, to me, just gold. I love that stuff. I love knowing the history of the truck, the people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm hoping maybe I'll be able to track down the first owner, but we'll find out. I mean, it's been a long time ago.
Sure. Now, that's got to be part of the fun of having an old truck, and it's part of solving the mystery of where it's been and things like that.
Definitely.
I love that you're doing that, and that you love it. You appreciate it for what it is, where it's been, the stories that the truck has to tell, and now you can tell the stories of the truck.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And I mean, it's not working right now. I'd like it to be back on the road again. Even if I don't do it for long, I'd still like to do it just to say I did it.
Yeah.
But I love bringing it to these shows and showing it to people that have never heard of a Marmon, or they've never seen one up close, have no idea what they were all about. So it's cool to pass on that history to the next generation so that this doesn't just fade into oblivion.
Love it. I love it, man.
Appreciate it.
We need more guys like you and more trucks like this with stories. It's so awesome.
We're out there. You just got to find us.
Love it. Chris, thank you for
Thanks,
your time,
Philip.
man.
I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it, bud. All right.